Hello, and this lecture video for this week's lesson should help guide you through our readings and also explain some key ideas from our unit. The nice part about being on YouTube is there's a ton of great opportunities to use a summarizing tool or to get a transcript. If you'd like help with that, I can definitely help you with that because sometimes it's hard for us to listen and understand, and I understand that. So you clicked to watch the lecture video here. That's me. Hi, I'm talking to you. I want you to type one thing you learned from or noticed from our lecture below once you've listened to the whole video, okay? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to watch this YouTube video after the lecture about using descriptive language. So one of the first things we learn about in critical reading and writing, which is English C1000, is how to write well. The number one rule for this week is show, not tell. Use your senses to show us what you'd like us to see when you're writing instead of just telling us, right? So if you say, I am angry, that looks so different for every single person. It's really important for us to see what that looks like for you. Are you a quiet angry? Are you a loud angry? Are you a wall puncher? Are you a foot stomper? But this week, instead of writing about feeling angry, although you might, you're going to write about food because it's a really, really easy way to practice this incredibly important skill for writers, okay? So if you're like, why food? It's because it's an easy, quick, fast way to practice because everyone has some relationship with food. Even if you do not eat solid foods and you use an osteotomy bag or something like that, you still have a relationship with food that you can describe and explain, right? Everything has to eat something. And so you're going to watch this video and type one thing that you learned or noticed. It can be in your own words. It should be in a complete sentence. You know, this is a college class. Show me you're trying. But it can be just really brief there, one thing you learned or noticed. Our connections to food are going to be gathered together in a group of pieces of writing called a portfolio. And my question for our class is, who are we and what are our memories? As you write about different parts of yourself, you're going to learn writing strategies that will make you a stronger college student. So that's kind of the purpose behind all of this. We're going to start with you and the personal, and we're going to stretch our arms wide and talk about the whole big world. And it's going to be a really hopefully engaging and exciting and good thing, right? Even if you don't like to talk about yourself, there will still be things to write about, okay? We're going to do one reading this week, but I'll have some backup options if this one doesn't float your boat. It's called Brandied Fruit. Elizabeth Meyer Gonzalez is a real living writer. It came from this website. It was published quite recently, and I appreciate her story. She's going to write about the food her mother made. And so I found a YouTube short, which is like TikTok, but most people have YouTube, to start us thinking about food. So lots of people have opinions about why food matters. You're going to watch this little video clip and tell me in a sentence, what is this person saying about food, right? English 31000, you need to be able to understand what other people were saying, and you need to be a good listener so you can be a good writer, okay? I'm excited to see your answers to that. Then I'm going to have you make a list of foods that belong to your childhood, positive or negative. There's a really famous chef called Roy Choi, and he published a recipe in the New York Times for ramen noodles with American cheese on top. And he has a really wonderful story about how that's childhood comfort food, especially because his mom always made incredibly healthy foods all the time and even sold kimchi to other families. And so ramen noodles with American cheese on top was his at-home comfort loving food. And yours might be a warm chocolate chip cookie, or it might be pozole, or it might be that box of Kraft macaroni and cheese or McDonald's French fries. Think about foods from your childhood that you would never eat again. Even if someone begged you to, I still can't eat cherry tomatoes, or foods that you truly loved. And there's no judgment. It's your list. It can just be a list. It doesn't even have to be sentences. You're going to read about a very unusual food. This is the author. I don't know if she looks the way you expected, but she's a real life person. She's a college professor, but also a writer. And this is called creative nonfiction. You might ask yourself, well, what is creative nonfiction? It's when we write something that's a true story in a beautiful way. A lot of us get all the way to college before we realize this is a thing, right? As a first generation college student, when I found out about creative nonfiction, it's like the world broke open because it can be funny or sweet or angry or kind. You're going to read Brandied Fruit, but I have a tip for you. If you're looking at it in Google Docs or Word, please notice there's also a PDF version. So this is the PDF version. I'm going to right click the PDF version that I downloaded. Okay, I hope you can see this. And then, so you can open in reading mode on Google Chrome. Did you know this? And then it reads all the words on the page. And up above, let me see if I can. Oh, it won't show. Okay, up above there's a little mouth, and it'll let you choose languages. And yo hablo y entiendo español, and so I also have, of course, Spanish, but one of my home languages is English, so I have English here as well. It will read to you. So I'm going to try to let this read a little bit to you so you can get a sense. It's robotic, but if you prefer to have something read to you, you can have it read to you.
Energy radiates around this stack of old cookbooks like a mirage. And the Women's Day Encyclopedia of Cookery.
Isn't that amazing? You can also, and why I like the United States Spanish too, for me, how they pronounce the words feel more clear. So I'll show you.
Volume 5F for frostings, frog's legs, and fruit sits on top. You flip through the pages of candied fruitcake and cherries.
And so for me, that voice actually feels more like home. And so if you would like the page read to you, you can open the PDF version to do that, because in the regular Word version, it's difficult to do. Okay. The reading is really special. She starts with an image of her home and her family. We can see inside the house to where we would find this recipe. We find out she's there because she's flipping through the pages. It's not describing how she looks as a little girl. It's not describing how she looks as an adult. But we know that things are stained, so they're probably old, and that her mother's ghost is there, and so her mother's no longer with us, right? There's lots of images here showing us what she sees. She copies a recipe of something her mother used to make with pineapple and cherries and sugar and then yeast, like for bread. She counts out the ingredients, right? And shares the memory of her mother making this recipe. She shares her memory of being a little girl bouncing around, right? And how her mother would put the recipe in the window. That's how it cooked. Isn't that wild? She tells about the songs she remembers listening to while this was happening and what her mother looked like while the fruit was cooking on the windowsill. And it turns out that in 8 weeks, you get almost this alcoholic, rich dessert fruit called brandy cherries. She remembers what her mother said and what she taught her, right? And even the truth is that her mother didn't really like to cook, right? And that she wasn't a great cook, but this was a food she remembered, right? And how special it was. She also points out that just like sourdough starter, if you've ever made bread, that brandied fruit can live forever. And I wonder if she's actually talking about her mom there and how the memory of her mom lives on. So I love that this description of a recipe also describes her feelings about her mom, her feelings about her childhood, but then also shows how their connection continues. This is one of the stories where we actually get a note from the author. Sometimes that doesn't really happen. This word subversive might be confusing. You can look it up. It means like surprising. And we get some information about the author. I think it's nice to know that she's a real person. You can follow her on Instagram. I always try to introduce you to living authors. I think you got enough dead people in high school. Okay, let's talk about our vocabulary. How does the speaker use naming to help us understand? Let's look back for a name. The names of books, the names of ingredients, right? We never get her mother's name, but we get the names of the specific fruit. She doesn't say put some fruit in a jar. It's peaches and pineapples and sweet cherries. We get the names of singers and songs, right? We get the names of particular people, women, or Young People's Science Encyclopedia. And so I think those names make it more specific. Remember at the beginning we talked about show, don't tell? If I was writing a story, I would try to name things. We don't have more than one author, so I want you to think about yourself. How would you write this the same? How would you write it differently? If you were going to write a story about a recipe that you cook, or that someone you know cooks, what would that look like? Right? And what have we learned about their perspective? I love this question. We know that she's older now, that the recipe's old, she's a grown-up, right? Maybe that she loves her mother, but there's parts of her mother she didn't understand at first. How does she show us that? These are great questions to ask about any story, but these are questions we might answer this week. You're going to choose one to answer here in a couple sentences. The box expands. You're going to look for word choices that reveal attitude or bias. So diction is when we choose a word that has a rich and thoughtful meaning, right? And so some word choices, it says, my mother's ghost reached for me, right? She could have said, my mom died, or she's gone now. But I think the word ghost makes it seem like she's present. I think that connects back to the end where she says things live indefinitely. Yeah. Look for another example of a word that seems to feel important or special or carefully chosen. You might have learned this one in high school, connotation. Connotation has an implied meaning, right? What we believe based on the word, right? And so if the denotation is a dictionary definition, the connotation is how we feel. There's a lot of feelings in this story. There's not a ton of neutral words, right? Light dances, right? And so I want you to look for a word with connotation, and it can be a good guess if you want. This one I think is incredibly important. Point of view here seems to be limited. It's the daughter's point of view. She sees it, but it's very much limited to what she remembers about her mother. We don't get her mother's side of the story, and that's okay. This isn't an interview, right? And so it's okay to just have her side of the story, right? And then characterization is also important. What do we learn about her as a person, as a daughter? Is she hopeful? Is she afraid? Is she angry or is she proud? These are questions we can ask ourselves. I would like you to pick the one vocabulary word that you feel like fit for you, that you feel like you understood, and choose one of them to describe the reading above. Yeah? If you struggle with that, this is a great thing to take to the WRC or to email me about. I'm happy to help. Right? I want you to practice the vocabulary because it can be difficult. So what I'd like you to do, because doing something once is not enough, right? Could you imagine going to baseball practice once and joining the Dodgers? You're going to listen to this TED Talk. It's about a girl who talks about cookbooks. And you're going to use two of these words, or you can use a focus and the word, one word, to describe the TED Talk. It's just more practice with the vocabulary and thinking about ways people talk about food. Okay, sometimes your WRC lesson will be separate. But for this week, because the WRC gets very busy the first couple weeks, I would like you to watch this video from the WRC Canvas page. And you're good. You don't have to go into the virtual or in-person WRC this week. Your writing assignment for this week is to do what she did. Tell me about a food. You can write like the author above by including a recipe or describing a food you ate or a place you went that brings up a very vivid memory for you, right? And it can be good or bad. Those of you who have had morning sickness when you were pregnant, you know what I'm talking about, right? It can be something you think I've never heard of. It can be something really common. My son, quite honestly, would write about the recipe on the side of Kraft macaroni and cheese, the $1.25 box. That's the one he likes. But you can pick anything you want. I want you to write a paragraph or two, because what we do is at the end of the semester, we take all of our little pieces of writing and we put it together in something we call a portfolio. It's like your own little book. And so it's really important that you do the little pieces of writing every week and that you do a good job on them, which means trying your best, writing as much as you can, and trying to show, not tell. You should use spell check on Google Docs or Word. Use your own ideas. Don't use AI. If I think it's AI, I'm not going to be mean to you. I'm just going to email you and go, is it AI? And then you're going to tell me the truth. Okay? And then you'll be done for the week. Some people, this assignment will take about 5 or 6 hours. Some people, it will take 2 hours. But this is your work for this online class this week. If you have questions, please email me and I will respond to you, and I can even make a video to explain more. I hope you have a wonderful day.